Hi everyone, I'm Julie Amber Daly. Welcome to Lurie Children's Facebook Live. Today we'll be talking about car seat safety. Being that April is National Distracted Driving Month, we thought it would be a great opportunity to review the proper use of car seats, infant, convertible, and booster seats. I'm joined today with Alex and Victoria.
Good morning.
Good morning. Alex and Victoria are what you would call car seat safety experts. They're certified car seat technicians, and they're going to review all the proper ways to use each seat. So, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I guess what we should get started with is that in Illinois and all states, there's a law, right, that says children should be in a child safety restraints.
Yes, of some kind, until they're able to fit into a seatbelt. And so it is different state by state, but for the state of Illinois, any child 8 and under are required to be in a restraint of some kind. The second part of that, the parent is also the one legally responsible for providing that car seat whenever a child is in the vehicle.
So that means carpools too, just something to keep in mind.
Yes, exactly. So our big message here is to really keep children in car seats of some kind to the limit. And everything starts with infant seats, convertible seats, booster seats.
One thing I wanted to point out though before we move on is that it's interesting that it's by age. 8 is the age in Illinois.
Yes.
But to be super cautious and safe, there's a weight and height expectation, right?
Correct, yes. So
for booster seats, we really want kids to stay in them until they're 4 feet 9 inches tall. And that's the height of our buddy over here.
He's pretty tall.
He's pretty tall. It surprises a lot of people.
Yeah.
But the reason that's so important is because seatbelts were made for adults. So we want seatbelts, as this little diagram is showing, to go over the shoulder and then to rest on the hip bones. But when kiddos are too short, that seatbelt comes up onto their neck and it goes over their belly. And if you get into a car accident, the bones are what stop the seatbelt and hold you in place. But if it's up on a belly, the first bone it's going to hit is actually the child's spine. So they can get a lot of internal organ damage. So that's what booster seats are going to do. They're going to literally boost the kiddo up and make that adult seatbelt fit them properly. So that's why they stay in there until 4 foot 9.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's get started with our infant installation and proper use. So this is what a newborn baby would sit in?
Yeah, so this is a typical infant carrier, and so until a child is able to properly fit into a seatbelt, we want to take advantage of a 5-point harnessing system to also keep them as safe as possible. So infant seats, until they reach the maximum height and weight limit for that specific seat, always worth checking your manual. And is it okay to go ahead and show some harnessing?
Yeah.
Okay.
We have our little baby.
Our little infant here. And so a few things right off the bat, so tell me if I'm going a little too slow or anything, but we really want to make sure that when you put your child into an infant carrier or a car seat of any kind, you want to keep your child in the deepest part of the seat. So find out where the depth of that seat is and make sure that child's booty is all the way back there.
Booty to the back.
Booty to the back. And Baby booty to the back, yes. And there's no right or wrong order for buckling. I have a habit of just getting everything buckled first to see where it kind of lines up. And then right away, I like to pull right above the crotch clip so that we can see any additional webbing that we might have. So we go by a few things. So first we want to look at the shoulder slot height. So we've got can you see that okay? So we want to see rear-facing children should have their shoulder slot height equal with, but ideally a little bit below the top of their shoulders. So we're actually not going to raise it up until they're already covering that.
Okay, so once the shoulder covers the second, or
Correct.
even this one, is when you would move to the second.
Yes, I would say that's a good way to say it. Would you agree?
Yeah, a good little memory tool for that is baby backwards below. Because we're going to talk about this in a minute, but when kiddos switch to forward facing, which should be around 2 years of age, those shoulder straps are going to now come from above their shoulder.
Okay, so you can see the difference.
Which we'll show a little bit better in a second.
The other way I like to think of that is that babies, you want it to be like if you were in a roller coaster, right? It's going to hold you down into the seat. But when kids are forward facing, it's going to look more the way your seatbelt looks on you. It's going to come from above your shoulder and come down.
Okay.
Exactly. And so right after that, I like to check the tightness.
Right.
So every carrier will adjust a little bit differently. This one, for example, you can just pull the straps, squeeze to loosen it. And a good way to test it is what we like to call the pinch method. So, I'm going to raise that up a little bit.
And this is important too.
Yeah, and that's usually, actually, I'll say that first. So this is usually like the last thing that I'm adjusting, but this chest plate, we want to be equal with the armpit level. So we're really keeping the chest plate in mind, which for children that's so tiny, so we like to say equal with the armpits. But again, with the seatbelts too, we're trying to avoid the soft parts of the belly.
So why, again, just to clarify, why is it at the armpit level for
so keeping it at the armpit level is really going to be what covers the chest plate for the child, and that's kind of a good distribution of weight for this 5-point harness, keeping kind of their whole body in the deepest part of the seat.
So over their strong sternum and not lower over their soft belly.
Or getting too close to like the neck or the chin also. So armpits are a pretty good measure for that. Yeah. So keeping that in place, I like to just check at the shoulders. If I can pick up and pinch anything, we can get rid of it. But that's not to say go in there, grab everything you can and get rid of it, because it is possible for this harness to be too tight. So if you can pick up and pinch anything, get rid of it. From here, yes, the armpit level for the chest clip, that's perfect. And just as like a side note also, if the child needs some additional padding or a little bit more structural support, this baby, for example, is a very good fit into the seat. But if there's just a little bit too much movement on the sides or not enough neck support, it is also appropriate to add in some additional rolls. This might be a little thick for this specific child.
You just take those receiving blankets that you have tons of when you have babies, and you'll just roll it up sort of like a sleeping bag, and you can place it on either side.
Exactly.
The only thing we want to be careful of as we're putting in more padding for baby is we don't want anything that's going to go behind their head. One thing that we're concerned about with little ones in car seats, and we'll talk about this a bit more when we actually show you how to install it, but we want it to be at the right angle, and we don't want their head flapping forward and potentially blocking their airway. So anything we're putting behind their head is just increasing the chances that their head is going to flap forward.
Yes, same thought too behind the shoulders. Sometimes with some padding that's added in, it might kind of scooch behind the shoulders, but again, the idea is to keep the child as far back and as far down as possible.
Okay. So, for this purpose, we have the seat facing you, so it's front facing. But this is definitely a no-no.
Yes,
all children until they reach the age of 2 should be rear facing.
Yes,
correct?
2 years old or as long as possible,
Okay.
given the height and weight limit of the seat that you're using.
I think you even told me yesterday in Sweden kids are rear facing until 4.
Four years old.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
I love that.
And why are they rear facing? Is that just
so the idea is in a crash or a sudden enough stop, having this shell face the rear of the vehicle, it's really going to force that child into the shell that will really protect their whole body. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
And then kind of absorbing that force rather than the child actually absorbing that force. Then once the car seat kind of, well, what's the best way to say that? Like
So
after the seat.
when you get into an accident, all of the motion's going forward, right? If this comes to a complete stop, baby in car seat still have that motion forward. So what that does is it helps make sure baby's neck and spine stay straight as they get pushed into the back of their car seat. Contrast that with forward facing, which again you would never do with this particular car seat, but in a forward facing accident now, that forward motion, baby's head and upper body go forward. So until they have the muscle development and the spine development to be able to support that, we want them rear facing. So it's much safer. Between 1 and 2 years of age, it's actually 500% safer for kids to stay rear facing as opposed to forward. So we know it can be hard, you can want to turn them around, but the longer you can hold out and keep them rear facing, the safer they're going to be.
Well, I think it's really a great point that you make, that it's more because of their spine and their muscle development that hasn't quite met, you know, the full development. Because I know, for instance, my little girl is taller than most of her peers, and even now, she's 18 months, but her legs are scrunched, and so I feel like she's not comfortable, but I would much rather have an ankle injury or something like that if we were in an accident than a spinal injury.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what we like to stress to parents also, that you can, taking advantage of the maximum weight limit, rear facing really keeps the child safer and more comfortable, and not worrying about the legs is really going to be what keeps the rest of their body more sturdy.
They can just sort of sit crisscross applesauce. Their feet can be on the back of this chair and it's not going to hurt them. In the event of an accident, if the seat would come up and they would just do a little squat and they'd be fine. We really rarely see ankle injuries from rear facing, but like you mentioned, if we have to choose, we'd rather have an injured ankle than an injured neck.
Most definitely. Okay, so this infant car seat, it's rear facing.
Yes.
It's ready to be installed, right?
Yes. So this is a carrier only, so we do also have one with a detachable base, but just to demonstrate for a seatbelt installation, I would say. So a few things first. With especially not having any base, we want to be careful about the correct angle. And on this seat, it will show you, where's that level at? Here we go, on this side. So this red line tells you must be level with the ground. So keep in mind, not level with the vehicle, but rather the ground that that vehicle is on. So I like to line that up just to get a good idea of what I'm working with, but then I'll adjust that again right before I finish. So for a seatbelt installation, can you see okay? I'm going to take the lap portion of the belt, and we've got 2 clips right underneath the padding here.
So this is what she's inserting it into, if you can see that. It's called our belt path.
Yes, our rear-facing belt path, and then nothing too tricky so far. I'm just going to make sure it's all the way in and buckle it in. Then from here, I personally, the first time doing this, I do not have the child in the carrier. It is helpful to have access to the depth of the seat, but then I'm just going to pull right above that latch plate. It does help to take advantage of the compression of the cushions in your vehicle, but now we're going to engage our retractor by pulling it all the way out until it stops, and oftentimes you'll hear that clicky noise, which tells you that the retractor is engaged, and now our seatbelt is locked.
That's a really important step. A lot of times parents will forget, and if you've ever encountered your car seat slowly loosening up as you're driving and you're not sure why, it could be that you forgot to lock the seatbelt.
Yes, or perhaps pulled it out too quickly that you're actually engaging the emergency locking retractor, which then immediately unlocks rather than the automatic locking retractor, which once it's locked, it stays locked.
Absolutely.
So then from here, I'm going to continue to tighten it, and again, we're going for less than 1 inch of movement out the belt path. Please do not copy that I'm pushing on a child here. And then once it seems like, okay, I have a pretty good, it seems pretty tight, I'm going to test it right at the belt path, less than 1 inch of movement side to side, front to back. We will always have a little bit of movement up here, but what we care about is where this becomes part of the vehicle. So now that we can confirm that this is pretty sturdy, I'm going to make sure that my angle is still correct by just kind of shimmying that up. And then we'll test it again. And that's looking pretty good to me. Carrier only installation.
And so any of these infant car seats can be installed without a base with the seat belt, right?
Yes,
Absolutely.
every car seat can be installed without a base.
Okay.
Yes.
But a base just is, what purpose does it serve?
It is a convenience
Okay.
measure, so it is helpful having one, especially just with once it's installed and it's installed correctly, you can keep it put. But either one, crash tested, safe to use.
Yeah, if base is in mom's car and dad needs to take baby somewhere, he's more than fine to go ahead and install the car seat like we showed here.
Or, you know, being in the city, a lot of us take public transportation, cabs,
Absolutely.
Ubers.
Yeah.
So that's great to know.
Yeah.
And so this little, I'm a baby boy, let's call him.
Yes, baby boy.
You know, he's pretty small. How big can he grow until he outgrows this seat?
Yeah, so again, it's always worth double checking your manual along with your vehicle manual to make sure that you're meeting the height and weight requirements. This seat, for example,
let's
goes
take-
until 22 pounds.
Because it's on the car seat, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll show you, and it might be in a different spot on car seats. than
Yeah,
all
so
car
then for
seats,
this
but-
one, we'll zoom in right here. And it's always going to kind of
Oh,
be
right.
under
Okay.
the same warning labels, but then we've got 5 and 22 pounds, 29 inches. This seat, for example, which we'll talk about more in a minute, is in the back right here. Same warning label, height and weight requirements.
So what if my child meets the weight or height first, but not both?
Good question. As soon as they meet
One of them?
one of them, they should be switching to the next appropriate car seat.
Okay.
The reason that the height and weight are so important, weight is going to be, that's what this car seat was crash tested with.
Okay.
So if a child weighs more than what this car seat says it allows, the car seat might not be able to support them in the event of a crash.
Right.
So it's really important to pay attention to the
Yes.
height and weight of your child.
And
And
height is really important because we want the seat to be able to contain the child. And if they're getting too tall, then we can have their head coming out in the event of a crash and hitting other things in the vehicle.
And one thing to point out before we move to the convertible seat is this this bar. It's for carrying purposes.
Yes.
But in installation in
The vehicle,
a car, in
yes.
the vehicle, I know I've gotten conflicting information. My sister's car seat, when I put my nephew in once, she told me no, the bar needs to go behind him. But in our car seat, it was over my child, like it is here. So is it just depends on the seat, and where can you find that information?
That's exactly right. Every car seat is different.
Okay.
So, and one thing we like to say is all the information we're giving you today is correct for most car seats, but the best source of information is going to be your instructions. If your instructions say anything different than what we're saying, that's what you listen to.
Okay.
Yes.
Those always trump what we tell you. So that's what you'll just have to check. It has always an index in it. You can just look up where the handle position should be, and there'll be images as well to show you which positions are okay.
Okay. Do you think we should move on to the convertible?
Yes.
Okay.
So once a child outgrows their infant carrier, they will then switch to a convertible seat. And what a convertible means just is that it goes both rear facing and forward facing. So we've already got our friend here in a car seat, but I want to point out real quick that for convertible car seats, there's usually a foot or a base adjustment of some kind allowing you to switch it from rear facing to forward facing. So for this example, we're going to make sure that this foot is for the rear facing setting, which also shows you in the pictures here.
And Alex, before you get started, just so everyone knows, the infant seat is just a convenience.
Yes,
Seat, really.
yes. So the minimum weight of this convertible seat is 5 pounds, just like the minimum weight of both of these seats.
So
5 pounds.
ideally, a newborn baby, if they are 5 pounds or more, can go ahead and sit in a convertible
Absolutely.
seat right
Yes.
from the hospital.
Absolutely.
It's just more of convenience sake to be able to carry them.
Sure,
in
and with
out.
the stroller
Yeah.
systems, you know, they are definitely
Okay.
convenient to have. But given some of the padding and the infant inserts that come with convertible seats, you're still able to get a really solid fit and a comfortable fit for twice as long.
Okay.
Well, twice as long, much longer, I should
Yeah.
say.
Depending on the child.
So now we have, with this foot adjustment here, you can kind of tell that this is incorrect because none of the base of the seat is actually touching the vehicle seat. So flipping it around, we see now that we have this really nice angle. Thank you. Allowing us to take advantage of that rear-facing angle.
And here's a good example of how
Yes, perfect.
his or her feet are totally fine.
Yep, so would probably be a little bit of this
All right.
instead. Installation, I would say. Should I do latch system? Well, seatbelt installation?
Let's talk about latch, I
Yeah,
guess.
a good
Because most
segue.
cars, you mentioned yesterday when we
Yes.
met, 2004 models and up are
Yes.
all equipped with the latch system.
Correct.
Which are little brackets, right?
Yes. And this stands for the lower anchoring and tethering for children. And they're sometimes a little difficult to find in the vehicle, but they all look like this little bar. And the symbol for that latch system, thanks Julia, is gonna look like this. So right above the lower anchor in your vehicle, you'll have like a little button or sticker that will look just like that, telling you that right below there is the lower anchor placement or location.
I do have that.
Yes.
One thing I want to point out with latch is that it's a choice. They're equally safe. So
Okay,
seatbelt
exactly.
and latch can both be used to install the car seat, but we do not want to use them together. There are 1 or 2 car seats on the market that will allow you to do that. So if your instruction manual specifically says you can use both, that's fine. But for the most part, you pick one or the other. And the reason is they haven't crash tested them together, and it
Okay.
could put too much strain on the car seat.
Okay.
Okay, so it might seem like you're being extra safe by
Uh-huh.
using both,
Right.
but we actually don't want to do that.
Interesting. Yeah, I think most people would think you're increasing the
Mhm.
safety
Sure.
of the seat.
Another really good thing that we'd like to point out with latch is there is a weight limit, okay? So we talked about that every car seat has a maximum weight limit, but latch does as well. And latch's weight limit is going to be 65 pounds. The important thing to remember is that 65 pounds includes the weight of the child and the weight of the car seat. So some convertible car seats will allow you to use them up until 65 pounds. But if you have a 65-pound child in a 5-pound car seat, you're now over the latch weight limit, and you'd need to use the seatbelt to install it.
Okay. So Alex.
So what I'm doing here, so since the latch system can go both rear-facing and forward-facing, you do have to adjust the rear-facing, forward-facing belt path, which this pocket right here, and it kind of shows you too, forward-facing belt path, rear-facing belt path. So unclip it, put it into the next one, and then it's ready for rear-facing use. Okay, so a few things, keeping that twist out of there. There we go. Okay, so this is right. This is wrong. We want to keep
the buckle, or
yeah,
the fasten part should be down.
We kind of want it to look like a tooth.
For all seats?
Yes, and they don't all look quite like this,
Okay.
but for this model,
Right.
exactly like
Okay.
this. And then, and it looks like I saw a little twist in there. There we go. Okay, so first, I'm just going to connect this first one, and I think it's helpful keeping everything pretty loose too, just so you can work with it. Connect that one.
And the child would not be already in the seat, so this
As much as I like having it in here.
we have him in here just because of
Thank you.
ease.
And then I'm going to connect the other one. Again, nothing tricky so far. Just connect it to the vehicle. There we go. And I'll just start to get rid of my slack a little bit over here.
And this time the way she's tightening it is she's just pulling on the strap. So there is no locking it the way you'd lock a seatbelt. It's just tightening it the way you would a seatbelt on an airplane.
Yes, and then once you tighten it, it will stay locked, and then to disengage that lock, you'll lift to loosen it, which it'll say on there also. So now from here, I'm going to tighten it as much as I can, making sure that the whole base of the seat is flat on the vehicle. I'm going to make sure it's symmetrical on the vehicle seat, no twists or anything, and I'll tighten it as much as I can. It helps to maybe put your body weight in the seat, perhaps I do that often. But again, compressing the cushions, taking advantage of the squishiness in your vehicle. And then, same thing, we'll test only at the belt path. We will have a little bit of movement up here. Only matters where it becomes part of the vehicle. Latch system.
And placement of car seats.
That's
Whether
another
it's an
great
infant,
question.
booster, or this convertible. Is it still considered that the middle is the safest, or does it really
The
matter
safest
now?
place to install a car seat is wherever you can install it the most properly.
Okay.
Yes.
So sometimes the middle seat has a little bit of a bump in it, or a lot of vehicles don't allow you to use latch in the middle seat.
Right.
Please check your vehicle manufacturer's guide for where you're able to use latch in your specific vehicle. So it's going to depend on several. The middle's nice because you're going to have more protection from side impact crashes. But again, it's wherever you're going to get the best fit.
And never in the front seat.
Never in the front seat.
Never. Worth mentioning also, so the front seat law is 13 years, no younger, 13 years old.
Okay.
All right. So just a quick recap of rear facing, what you're going to look for to make sure you have it installed correctly. First, you're going to be checking your harness. We don't want to pinch any slack. We want to make sure the shoulder strap, see this, we'd actually adjust this. We have this in the forward facing slot. Since this kiddo's rear facing, remember baby backwards below. We'd want to use the one from below, but for now we'll just ignore that. We've got our chest clip at the right position. It's at armpit level over the strong sternum bone. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check at the belt path and make sure I can't wiggle more than 1 inch side to side. Looks like we've got a nice tight fit. And then I'm also going to check that angle indicator. On this car seat, it's just an arrow that's melted into the plastic, so it's probably difficult to see here. But again, we want that parallel or level with the ground of the actual floor, not the vehicle. And then the very last thing I'm going to check with rear facing is I want to be able to slide my hand, or at least one pinky, between the car seat and the vehicle seat in front of it if I have it behind either the passenger or the driver. And the reason for that is, like we talked about before, this seat needs to be able to come forward a bit and have the child in the seat to absorb some of those crash forces. And if we have this sandwiched in behind the passenger or the driver, it's not going to be able to do that, and the child's more likely to get injured. Okay, so that's the other reason when we're testing for a tight fit, we do it down at the belt path and not up here. This is supposed to move a little bit. Okay?
Good to know. And then this seat too, you'll just check height and weight, and if your child meets either height first or weight, then it's time to move to a booster seat.
So then we'll actually do forward facing for this same seat. So uninstall. So then to change that,
convertible seats will have 2 upper height and weight limits because they can go 2 directions.
Oh, so it depends on if it's...
Exactly.
Oh, interesting.
Exactly. Sometimes they'll be the same. This specific seat it actually is.
Okay.
But a lot of times it'll be rear facing until maybe 40 pounds, but forward facing until 60 pounds.
Good to know.
So
your manual is the resource to check that, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely. And one other thing, while Alex is switching this around, that I'd like to point out, this is a question I get from new parents a lot. If I spend more money on a car seat, does that mean that it's safer? No, it doesn't, okay? So car seats all pass the same crash test, okay? So the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, any car seat that's on the market has passed the same rigorous testing. We don't actually have access to how a car seat does on a test. Okay. You might see some ease of use ratings, and that's good to keep in mind for convenience or for installing it, how easy it's going to be, but that doesn't relate to safety.
Okay. Which is also worth mentioning too, just remember that all car seats expire and they all have an expiration date. So convertible seats, I don't know if it's, so 10 years is usually, depending on the different seats, again, always worth checking your manual, but once you have a car seat, that doesn't mean that, since it can go both rear facing and forward facing, that you can keep it forever.
A lot of times it's actually 6 years.
6 years, yes.
And the expiration date, as well as being in the manual, it's actually also printed on a car seat, on the base, right? I don't know if you want to just highlight it.
So this seat,
a lot of information already on your car seat that you can find. We saw it yesterday. Oh, down here.
Right here.
So it expires on December 9th, 2022.
Exactly.
Which is something I did not realize, that car seats do expire.
And sometimes it's a little tricky to see, so it's worth checking, again, with like different information being melted into the plastic. This seat, for example, expires...
I know, we saw it.
Yeah, we did see this. Oh, wait, actually, no.
This one's going to tell you right here.
Oh, right.
It's always going to be this white mailing size label, okay? Sometimes it'll only tell you the date of manufacture, so just go ahead and add 6 years to that.
Okay. And that's also a great point to make, is that when you receive the car seat brand new, there's a
little postcard
registration,
size.
And although it might seem old school snail mail, to register it and actually write it out, it's really important to do so, because then you get important information if there's like a recall or other issues with your seat, right?
Yep. A lot of times that's the only way that you would know. If you've mailed back that card, the company has to contact you and let you know if they ever discover there's an issue with the seat. And otherwise, it's really hard to keep track of every recall.
Yes.
Do that for all your baby stuff. Cribs, toys, everything that you're going to be buying will come with a recall card.
I know that well.
There cannot be enough. And then just to show too, sometimes with some of these seats, it is a little difficult to see, but check the back of your carrier too. If you can't find the sticker, maybe the expiration year is also right here. And how this one says 2023. All right.
One thing I want to point out before we're getting close to our time, one of the most important and biggest differences between a rear-facing installation and a forward-facing installation is going to be this hook right here, which is called a top tether, okay? Something I'd like to point out, I know I said before, don't use latch and seatbelt at the same time, but this is the exception. Latch, we're just talking about those lower anchors that are used in place of a seatbelt, but anytime you install a car seat forward facing, we want to use this latch. Now where it's going to hook onto is going to depend on what type of vehicle you have. If you have a car, It's usually going to be on that window shelf. Okay, you'll see sometimes it's covered by a little piece of plastic. You'll need to flip it up and the metal bar will be in there. Again, yep, look for that little anchor button or read your car's manufacturer guide if you're having trouble. Some trucks, the bar will be on the roof.
Okay.
And some vans, it's going to be on the back of the vehicle seat down low.
Turn this around.
Yep, we can show you on this one.
It might be a little dark, but that's what you're looking for.
Or perhaps right in the seat itself up here.
Okay.
You're also going to want to read your manufacturer's guide for the vehicle to see if you're going over or under the headrest. A lot of times it's under, but some vehicles specify they want it over. So I'm just going to take this hook. On this one here, I push this gray button to loosen it. It comes all the way out. I'll hook it on to wherever it needs to go. I'm not actually going to hook it for our purposes, but we'll just pretend it hooks there. And then again, I'll pull to tighten, same way I would with an airplane belt. And the reason this is so important is because when we're forward facing, our car seat is attached here at the base, but there's nothing attaching it up top. And again, what we're worried about in a crash is that forward head and shoulder movement and any whiplash that the kid can get. So this is going to pull tight here and make sure that the top of this seat isn't able to move. All right, it actually reduces forward head movement by 4 to 6 inches, and it's the #1 most common mistake that parents make installing car seats, and it's really, really easy to use.
So in a front-facing seat, such as this, in rear-facing, you mentioned that we need some space between the back of the seat and the driver's seat or the passenger seat. What about front-facing, if the child can reach the seat in front of it with his or her legs?
So the further back that you can have this child from the seat in front of them, the better, because again, if we are to get into an accident, the arms are going to come forward and the legs are going to come forward, and if there's anything in front of the child that they can hit, they are a little bit more likely to get injured, but I mean, you just do the best that you can. It's not going to affect the installation. Okay. So again, if somebody has really long legs and they just have to be a bit further back, there's not much you can do, but if you are able to bring that vehicle seat more forward, it's always a good idea to do so. So for this one, again, it's going to be the same thing. We're going to either take that seat belt and we're going to put it through the belt path as we saw before, which would be just right here, or we're going to do with latch. On a convertible car seat, like we already saw, we have 2 belt paths, and that can be a little confusing. The easiest way to remember is whichever belt path you're going to be using will always be closest to the back of the vehicle seat. So in forward facing, that's this belt path right here. And when we flip around for rear facing, you'll notice that it's now this belt path that's closer. So just a little memory trick.
Okay.
Okay. Very last thing is booster seats, and those are the easiest, so that's my favorite. Sorry.
And here we have a high back booster. Dun, dun, dun. So a few things about this. There's not typically an installation, but this shoulder positioning piece might be a little bit easy to miss sometimes. So once a child outgrows the maximum height limit of their forward-facing convertible, height and weight limit, they will then move to this high back booster. And again, we just want to position them up a little higher for that seatbelt to fit properly. So placing this into the seat.
So only when they meet that max,
Yes.
that they should be in a booster.
Correct, and it's always worth, again, checking the weight limit of the booster seat too. We don't want any gaps between their weight.
The minimum, the absolute minimum, and again, like we said, we want to keep them at each stage as long as they can. The one time in life you don't want your kids graduating too soon. The minimum is going to be 4 years old and 40 pounds. But your child's maturity is going to play a big role in that. So some kids are more able to sit there for the whole ride and not mess with the adult seatbelt. Some kids need a little longer, and that's where that 5-point harness will help hold them in place better.
Exactly. All right, so our 6-year-old at 48 inches, to buckle in, we'll make sure that this one goes underneath the armrests. And then, thank you. And see how that lat portion of the belt sits nice and low over the pelvic bone. And now, to make sure that the seatbelt's not going up too high, we're going to slide that shoulder portion into our positioner. like so. And now we have it nice over the collarbone.
As kids are buckling themselves in, just be sure that they're getting this shoulder strap underneath this armrest that's closest to the buckle, okay?
And no twist or?
No twists, no.
Okay.
Just make sure it's nice and smooth, and again, coming like a V here to meet underneath this armrest that's close to the buckle.
And most high back boosters will actually grow with the child too, and so there's a lever on the back of this seat that as your child grows in height, you can position the like the back portion to also keep that side impact protection as much as you can for the head.
And the way that you're going to know whether or not you need to use a booster seat that has a back is going to be the actual vehicle seat itself. So in this seat, we would actually be okay to use, I'll just show right here, we'd be okay to use a booster seat without a back. And the whole point is we don't want the child's head to be able to go backwards and then forwards, again, increasing the chances of whiplash. But as long as their head is supported, we're okay. So some vehicle seats won't come as high as this with a headrest, and in that case, you do need to have a back on the booster.
Just note also, at our road safety day right after this, we'll definitely be doing a lot more demonstrations too, so we can do every possible question.
So if you're at the hospital, that's going to be taking place from 10 to noon on the 11th floor. I didn't know the difference between high back and...
Yeah, a lot of people don't.
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of high back boosters also are then converted to no back boosters. So this one, for example, once that weight limit is met, which I believe is 80 pounds for this seat, goes up to 100 pounds, no back booster. So again, you can still use a bunch of equipment until a pretty high weight limit that you can then remove this seat and still be able to use the same equipment without having to purchase something else.
And there's some cute booster seats on the market. There's some that kids can wear to school as a little backpack. So again, if you do have a carpool, exactly. There's some that are inflatable. There's all different types. They've got fun patterns to make them a little bit more appealing. And I personally have found the best reasoning to use with a kid is it helps them see out the window.
Oh, that's true, yeah. And same with as car seats, booster seats, there's probably tons on the market, but if they're being sold, that means they've
all passed the same crash test. Exactly.
Correct.
Exactly.
Because I know with selecting a car seat, there's
a lot to choose
literally
from.
It can be
hundreds,
overwhelming.
and they're all safe.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. All right. If the viewers have any questions, we have Victoria and Alex here, and they can help answer any questions. Otherwise, I think.
Yeah, I wanted to point out too just a couple tiny things. So be aware of what we call aftermarket products, which would be fun, cute features that are advertised to work with car seats or different safety equipment, but we really want to be wary of equipment that was not crash tested with the seat. So for example, if a car seat comes purchased with some infant inserts or some paddings, then you know that it is appropriate to use given whatever weight limits that might have. But things like this, for example, that they're cute and advertised to be used with a carrier, but inside here we actually have a metal cylinder that in the right circumstances this would be a projectile and possibly injure your child. We also want to be wary of some of these seat protectors that, although there are some effective ones on the market, it is, again, we don't know how it will respond in a crash and is sometimes a hindrance to a good installation also.
Because it wasn't tested with the car seat.
Exactly, yes. And because there's so many different car seat vehicle combinations, we're really not sure how it would respond in an accident.
So, but there are some that come with the car seat, which in that case they've been tested?
If it comes together with the car seat, then yes, it did pass the same crash testing. And then the only other thing too, we want to be careful for any padding that you might use or blankets to keep your child warm. We don't want to keep anything in the carrier with the child, that it's just the child in the shell with the harness on. And this blanket, for example, it has some filigree on it that could cause a suffocation or some breathing problems. So be aware of anything getting close to your child's face or in the carrier with.
And lastly, we want to mention Alex and Victoria actually take this car seat safety demo on the road. Alex is out in the community, right?
Yes, so Wednesday afternoons I do also hold some installation appointments. It does support our special needs program here in the hospital. You can find more information at lurieChildrens.org/car seat class.
Okay. And we're here in the Peterson Family Library, which is located on the 12th floor of the
Peterson
hospital.
Family Learning Center.
Oh, family, sorry. On the 12th floor, on your way to the Family Life Center. If you're ever inpatient or here for an appointment, outpatient, you can stop by the center and maybe see Alex. And there's some great resources here, not just on car seat information, but various other.
Anything you're looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
And
one-stop shop.
Victoria actually holds a class, right, out in the community on car seat safety.
Yes, so Tuesday nights, every Tuesday of the month, we're teaching classes either in Lincoln Park or down in Bronzeville, and those are free and open to anyone. You can just call 312-227-7081 to register for that course.
And that's every Tuesday?
That's every Tuesday, correct.
I think that's it. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank
And
you,
if you have
everybody.
questions after this, feel free to comment and I will get the answers for you. Thank you.